everyone, welcome to In Bed with Brooke, episode 9. So at episode 8, we had ended chapter 3, so obviously now we'll begin at chapter 4. Give me just 1 second to get everything situated and we'll get going. The more Alex thought about it, the more pissed off she got. What the heck just happened back there, she wondered as she drove home from what she could only say would go down as the worst audition she had ever experienced. It should have gone well. She had more than prepared for it, had been excited about it. Annette's office had faxed over the script and she had it memorized and perfected all the way down to the staging directions suggested in the script. The last hour was such a blur. Had it really happened? Unfortunately, it had. Alex arrived 15 minutes early like she did for every audition. Punctuality was key, and it would give her a good reputation in the industry if casting directors knew she wasn't the type of person to keep them waiting. It didn't matter that she was kept waiting most of the time. She was at their mercy, and she had to arrive early. She was really looking forward to the possibility of this opportunity. A small role on one of the hottest dramas on television right now could do wonders for her career, not to mention look fantastic on her resume. The routine was normal, checking in with the receptionist, smiling at a few other girls waiting to audition, getting cold smiles in return, and making herself comfortable with the magazine until her name was called. Well, she thought, looks like I'm going to be here a while if there are 2 others ahead of me. Alex took a deep breath, prayed for patience, and went over the scene in her head, absently flipping through the magazine. The receptionist came out from behind her desk looking at her clipboard. "Jennifer, you can go in now." One of the girls stood up and went into the room. Alex tried not to pay attention to the fact that the girl was tall and blonde with blue eyes. What was it about that combination that was so appealing to casting? She always felt inferior when she was in the running for a part against someone who looked like that. Her brown hair and brown eyes seemed so dull and boring to her. Shaking off the self-hate, Alex turned to her magazine, skimming the pages on the pages, okay, little mistake there, we're gonna go back. Shaking off the self-hate, Alex turned back to her magazine, skimming the images on the pages as she flipped through. After what seemed like an eternity, she looked at her watch. 15 minutes had passed by. There came muffled voices from the other side of the door. Her head snapped to attention a little at the sound of Jennifer's voice rising in anger. Alex thought that was strange since there wasn't any yelling in the scene. Maybe Jennifer had been asked to read another scene. She was hopeful. Maybe she would be asked to read another scene as well. A few minutes later, the door flew open, startling Alex as Jennifer ran out with tears streaming down her face. She grabbed her purse and said to the other girl, "Let's go." They both took off without turning back. "Looks like that audition didn't go too well. I guess the other girl wasn't here to audition," Alex mumbled under her breath. She glanced at the receptionist, who rolled her eyes and stepped into the other room. A minute later, she came out and nodded to her. "Alexandra, you can go in now." Alex smiled and stood up. "Thank you." It was a typical arrangement for an audition. White background, tape mark on the floor a few feet from the camera. Some auditions were held in a conference room, some were held in places that looked like classrooms. The rooms may vary, but the setup was always the same. Today's was in the fancy office of the casting director. There was a big cherry wood desk against one wall, a liquor cabinet in the corner next to a small couch, and a huge window with a breathtaking view of downtown. "Hi," Alex smiled as she closed the door behind her. The man behind the desk stood up as she approached. He had plain brown hair, nondescript brown eyes, and a thin smile. To say he made her nervous was an understatement. But she shook it off. She had quickly learned that nerves were a good thing when it came to an audition. That energy almost always came through in her performance, but there was something about him that was making the hair on the back of her neck stand up. Good manners had been instilled in her at an early age, so she walked toward him with confidence and extended her hand. "I'm Alexandra Lorraine," she greeted. "Hello, Alexandra." He took her hand and shook it, holding on to it just a little too long for her comfort. "I'm Andrew Green. It's nice to meet you." Alex nodded and pulled her hand out of his. "It's nice to meet you too. Please," he gestured toward the camera, "take your mark." Alex walked in front of the camera. The distance made her feel a little better. He focused in on her. "Okay, we want one of you filmed up close, and I'll have you do it again so we can zoom out and get a full-length shot of you. Go ahead and do your slate, take a minute, and begin. You ready?" Alex nodded. "And action." Alex did her slate to introduce herself. "I'm Alexandra Lorraine with Annette McDonald Talent." She took a second to compose herself and began the monologue from the scene, wishing she could add in the staging that she had practiced, but it didn't look that way. She still felt good about it and finished the monologue, staying in character until he stopped her. "Cut." Alex stepped back, clearing her throat and shaking her hands quickly at her sides to work off her nerves. "Nice, Alexandra, very nice." Andrew walked toward her, stepping a bit too close. We'll do the full-length shot now. Okay, she responded, and taking another step back. He was getting in her personal space, and it was making her uncomfortable. I'm ready, she said. Just 1 minute. Before she could step back, he was reaching out, unbuttoning the top 2 buttons of her shirt. Let's just loosen you up a bit. Alex stepped back sharply and batted his hand away. I'm confused. I thought the character was supposed to be extremely professional in manner and dress. Why would so many buttons be undone, she wondered. Let's try it from a different angle, he suggested with a creepy smile. Would you like a drink, Alexandra? Maybe that will help you loosen up. Andrew walked to the liquor cabinet and poured himself a drink, holding up the decanter in question. No, I'm fine, thanks. Can I do the scene again? She just wanted to get this done and get the hell out of his office. Andrew laughed lightly, somewhat maliciously, as he leered at her, sipping his drink. Eager, aren't you? Something like that, Alex stated, her voice shaking with uncertainty. He set his drink down and adjusted the camera. Okay, here we go. No need to do your slate again, just go right into the monologue. And action. Alex got through the scene a second time, impressed with herself for keeping cool in his presence. His skin looked clammy. She could see tiny beads of sweat on his upper lip, suddenly noticing the short sleeves on his shirt were too large for his skinny arms as he lifted his glass for another sip of his drink. She held her character again until he said cut. Andrew turned off the camera and held out his hand to her. She took it to shake, gasping a little when he pulled her along with him as he walked to the couch and sat down. Please, have a seat. Alex sat down as far away from him as possible, trying to get her hand out of his grasp unsuccessfully. Mr. Green, is there more to the audition? There was that laugh again as he ogled her. You could say that. He finished his drink, setting his glass on the table and smiling at her. Alexandra, he patted her hand, still caught in his. I think you are just perfect for this part. A little glimmer of hope sparkled for her. Maybe she'd read him wrong. You do? She asked, hopeful. Yes, I do. You were beautiful and so talented, and that was the best monologue that I've seen all day. Oh, thank you, she gushed on a huge breath of relief. That part is yours, honey. You just have to do one more thing. She was thrilled to hear that. Smiling, she asked, sure, what? Before she knew what was happening, he placed her hand roughly on his crotch so she could feel his heart on. Suck my dick, honey, and it's all yours. Oh, here we go. Okay. Gasping, Alex tried to yank her hand back, jolting forward as he pulled it back to his crotch. Come on, baby, you know you want it. How do you think half the people on TV get the parts that they do? They all start somewhere, and more than half of them have started right here on this couch. Suck my dick, honey, and doors all over the industry will start to open for you. He let out a cackle as she struggled against him, his voice raspy and low. Do it, Alexandra, he demanded. No, Alex yelled, finally finding her voice. I don't do that. Let go of me. She pulled at his fingers to free her hand. Andrew gripped her hand with both of his as she tried to stand up, pulling her down into his lap and pressing his thin lips to hers, making her gag with the moisture of the sweat and the smell of his breath. Whiskey and halitosis, probably the worst combination she had ever smelled. Finding the strength of Wonder Woman, Alex broke free and scrambled to grab her purse. She ran to the door, started to open it when his words stopped her. Sweetheart, you're never going to make it in this business unless you put out. You're short and you're not blonde. It's never going to happen for you. The leering and the advances didn't hurt her feelings, but those words did. It was her biggest insecurity of all, and he played on it perfectly, chipping away at features of hers that couldn't be changed. She couldn't think of any response, just opened the door and calmly walked into the lobby. While passing the receptionist's desk, she leaned over and whispered to the girl, he's a fucking creep. The receptionist nodded as she stood up. Don't I know it? She watched Alex walk off, impressed by her composure, and called out for the next actress in line. Kimberly, you can come on back now. Okay, so we'll stop there for this episode. I think that I know that these kind of situations happened in Hollywood many times and still do, because we've seen it lately with the, recent scandals and, of course, the Me Too movement. Interesting to see how Alex handled it. Not surprised that it happened to her. And there you go. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of In Bed with Brooke. I will leave in the comments below my website and information on where to find both Set It Free and Let It Go, the first 2 books in the Heart and Soul series. Thank you for watching. Please like, please share with your friends, and please leave me a fun comment. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.